self-love. Where do we start with this? We know that it's important, that it kind of defines the quality of our relationships and therefore our life and how happy we are and fulfilled. But where do we start with this? How do we go about it? This was inspired by a conversation that I had with a friend who was telling me that he was there with his friend and they were hanging out, and he overheard him say something like, stupid me, or just talking to himself in a disrespectful way within himself, right? And my friend said, yo, you gotta be nicer to yourself. Don't talk to yourself like that, not around me anyway. And you gotta love yourself more. And his friend replies, yeah, I don't know how. That's why this was created, because I heard that, it broke my heart. And having myself gone through that, having no clue, what does that even mean? Thinking that my life's pretty good, I love myself, it's good, I do things that I enjoy and I'm good, having no clue how disconnected I was from myself, having no clue where I was people pleasing, where I was asking for validation, for permission outside of me to feel good, to feel abundant, to feel fulfilled. Like, I need everybody else to be happy and then I'll be okay. I need all these things to be in place and then I'll be okay. That is not self-love. That's conditional. And that is what traps us. So this is what this is all about today. Let's dive right in. All right, 5 ways to go into self-love. What does that mean? We're going deep today. I gotta say, we're going deep today. I'm gonna get my notes. I wrote it down, what are the 5 ways? Because again, having gone through this journey myself, thinking like, oh yeah, no, it's all fine. And then understanding it's nowhere near. Having so many clients be like, in their late 30s, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, saying like, wow, I've only now learned what it's like to love myself. And I had no clue. I had no clue that I wasn't doing that. I had no clue how miserable I was. And that's how it gets you, because you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. You don't know how good it can get. So therefore, you're like, I'm not missing out by, not doing this. I remember when I came into meditation, it was after my spiritual shift. My guidance like, learn to meditate. And my mind was very kind of, the walls were down. So I was like, okay, let's learn meditation, because I already was in the spiritual state. But months prior to that, a friend suggests like, oh, here's a meditation book or whatever. I'm like, that's for hippies. Like, I don't need that. My life is good enough. Thank you very much. You don't know when you don't know. And it's not until you meditate, you're like, oh my God, this is possible. This is freaking insane, right? And it's the same with self-love. So you don't know what you don't know. Allow yourself to go into this fully. And now here's another trap. Some of us are there. I'm open-minded. I can read a book and I know without actually implementing. You don't know if you're implementing. So it's like and I would totally do this with my mentors, and they're like, they're telling me something, I'm like, I know this. It's like, Anna, shut up. Obviously you don't. Because you're not implementing it. Okay? And that's what now, years later, I get to say to my clients. I don't say shut up, but I just say, well, obviously you don't know. So just bring that to awareness. Talk to your inner critic like that when it's going all defensive. It's like, I already know this. Like, well, if you're not implementing it, then you don't. Knowing is a whole body experience. It's a whole life experience, not just on the mind level. Let's dive into it. Taking a deep inhale in. Number 1, the first way to love yourself. Rooted in that story that I told you from the beginning, the way you speak to yourself. One of the things that I did in my journey, and that I emphasize with every single person I work with, whether it's one-on-one clients, whether it's in Thrive, the membership that we have. I correct people when they write that in the comments. I correct people when, within the membership containers, when they say that as well. Musts, shoulds, need, have to. Get that out of your vocabulary. The way you speak to yourself is everything. So first of all, see, I'm already at the point I'm like, I shouldn't even have to mention saying things like, oh, that was so stupid of me, or like, why am I so like that's not even in my world. We don't say that. That's just not a thing. Okay? But on top of that, the next level, must, should, have to, need to. Remove them from your vocabulary completely. and see your life transform. These are cognitive distortions, okay? This is a something called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and it tells you how to talk back to your mind, right? What are those little tricks that your mind is using? How do you speak to yourself? This is not something I'm going to dive too deep into because, this is, first of all, I feel like every single step would be a whole different video. And it's something that I work with my clients deeper into, that accountability that actually, hey, are you implementing this and really seeing that transform? But if you want to do this on your own, just taking the things in. And I would strongly recommend, as you're watching this video, actually writing things down. What are you hearing me say? Because when you're writing it down, you're like rooting it, okay? And then the next step's like, okay, how do I implement this? Maybe for 1 week, you want to practice removing have to, shoulds, must, needs, okay? So another free resource that I have for this, by the way, is the link is going to be below in the free resources. The way you speak to yourself is choosing the stories that feel good. We've been taught to complain. We've actually been taught that we get validation and praise and connection through complaining. Think of it as a child, something went wrong. You're like, oh, but then they did this. And your parents are like, oh, sweetie, poor you, right? Or maybe your parents didn't do that. They were too tough. You went to someone else, a friend, like, oh, my friends are like horrible. They're so tough. And it's like, oh, it's okay. They're there. We get validation. We get love. We get connection. Not love, illusion of love. When we complain. When we talk about what's wrong in our life, when we play victim, it serves us. It served us as children. At some point, as a child, it served you to be a victim. And we take that on. And we continue, right? And it seems like the easier thing to do, but it isn't. Okay? And that has consequences long term. So one of the free resources that I have on my website is the 4-element practice, where they're basically mantras depending on the 4 energy centers in regards to the 4 elements. And this is where you root, like, ooh, I feel confident, I feel good. Gosh, I can't even think of from the top of my head right now all the other ones that are in there, but it's amazing. You can either listen to the whole track, which is about, I think 33 minutes. I remember that. It's 33 minutes, or each individual element, whichever one speaks to you. So that is a great resource because it reprograms your mind of, no, this is how I want to talk to myself. Okay. This is what I want to put out in the world, right? Because as within, so without. When you say those things to other people, like, oh, they're so stupid, you say to yourself, like, wow, I'm so stupid, right? You criticize yourself just as roughly. So, step number 2, the second way. As we're taking a deep inhale in, the second way that you can love yourself. Similarly as with words, it's what we consume, right? The thoughts, the words, the frequencies, because that's what thoughts and words are. They're just translations of frequency. What do you consume? What do you eat? What do you drink? What media do you consume? What is the narrative that you're subscribing to? Are you subscribing to health? Are you subscribing to fear? Are you subscribing to empowerment? Are you subscribing to, poor health or misery or lack, massive lack? The media, that's what they feed off of, right? Cutting out the news is something I would strongly recommend for everybody to do. As much as, people say, well, then you're misinformed. Well, okay. I'm not even going to go into that. So step number 2, self-love. What are you consuming? Not beating yourself up. This is an important one. Not beating yourself up for when you slip up. When you're there drawn to some junk food, noticing, why is this coming up? And I've made other videos on this, by the way. And, if this is something that you want to do one-on-one, again, the link is below of how to work with me. Because this is deep, this is a deeper topic. It's not something I can just explain on a YouTube video. Why it comes up, it depends on your specific energetics and working with that. Why are you still sabotaging? Whether it's emotional eating, it's a symptom, right? It's one of the ways in which it presents itself. But just on the mind level, just stopping, like, wait a second, what am I tolerating? If I were to love myself, what would I eat? What would I drink? When would I eat, right? For some of us, it's also time. Like, God, I don't want my body to be digesting all the time. This is too heavy, right? That's different. So, number 2, what are you consuming food-wise? Okay. Number 3, we're still with consumption. Number 3 is environment, the third way you can love yourself. I know part of my own journey was completely changing my whole house. And this was done over a period of time because some of you are like, well, I don't have the money to do that, right? And that was totally me. I'm like, I don't, but I do want to feel better. And I can remove things from my environment that don't serve me, even if I'm not ready necessarily financially, even emotionally, bring some things in. A large part of this is decluttering. So many of us carry things like the self-love, the lack of it rather, shows itself through all the things that we carry. Emotional baggage, physical baggage, like, oh, but that's a memory from this and this, and like, I don't want to let that go. The resentments we hold on to, that like your physical space is a reflection of your energetic, spiritual, emotional, mental bodies. So clearing the space, creating the environment in which you thrive, maybe putting some pictures on the wall that inspire you. It may start with sticky notes on a mirror, whatever that is. Are you willing to choose you? And now some of us, especially when we're coming to, what do I really want my space to look like? We're afraid of judgment. Because they're drawn to something, but it's like, I don't want to have these motivational quotes on my mirror because that shows like I have a problem, or whatever. What will people think? That right there is lack of self-love. Because you don't love yourself to stand in you, in tuning into what's right for you, and allowing that God life source consciousness to flow through you. Okay, so bring that to awareness. And again, completely fine where you're at. I would recommend just if you're not comfortable with this, just one little step at a time. And even if you've done this a million times, like I'm very connected to my space. Every single room in my home has an intention. It has instructions. It has like I clear it every new moon. There are a lot of rituals in each single space. It has a purpose. But even with that, it's like, I'm stepping into a new me. What does self-love look like now? What does it look like at this stage? And that shifts, and my environment shifts with it. So getting curious, what does that look like right now? And like I said, I would strongly recommend having this as a date, every single new moon or every first of the month for maybe longer periods like solstice or equinoxes, right? Or you're like, around my birthday, I come into what does self-love look like now? Okay, so not being stagnant with this. Energy is flow. Okay, energy is motion. All right. So next one, as we're taking a deep inhale in and exhaling out. The first 3 were easy. And some of you are like, no, they weren't. They're hard. If you're just starting out, this is difficult. But the first 3 were really easy. Now we're going to the 4th one. This is the difficult one for many people. The 4th way to love yourself is boundaries. It's boundaries with yourself, first of all, and then it's boundaries with other people. So as the example, right, that this whole thing was inspired by, my friend there witnessing his friend being like, oh, yeah, don't talk to yourself like that. Having that boundary as your inner critic says, oh, stupid me. Wait, no, boundaries. We don't say that. I'm not going to allow you to talk to me this way. Okay? And standing in that, I don't talk to myself this way anymore. I don't tolerate this anymore. I don't tolerate poisoning my body anymore. I don't tolerate, waking up and getting my phone right away or turning on the news and programming myself with crap anymore. I don't tolerate it. Those are boundaries. And when you get really good at that, even when you first start doing that, you might get that momentum and like that roar, that empowerment. You're not going to tolerate from people outside of you. And this is a muscle to be trained, but you're not going to say yes when you want to say no. And you're going to stop saying no when you really want to say yes, because you're going to allow yourself that expansion. You're not going to have those conversations of, all right, this is the polite thing to do. Like, oh, I hate this. I hate these conversations. The small talk or whatever. You're not going to, because you're so rooted in that self-love. Like, I don't tolerate this anymore. I'm here to be me. I'm here to be the fullest expression of me. And I can't do that if I have those energies that are coming into my field, that I'm allowing, right? It's like, oh, that's the polite thing to do. Or, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Even things like, I mentioned food. Be careful with that one. Because a lot of it, you can consume the healthiest things. They're not rooted in self-love. This is the difference, what I'm addressing here. The whole difference of whether things work or not. Why are there healthy people that are healthy, right? Eating healthy, they're getting cancer. Why? They're getting illnesses, disease. But it's like, but I'm eating healthy. And then people can be eating complete crap and they're fine. Because it's self-love. Because everything comes from lack of self-love or your ability to step into that over and over and over again, because there's so many layers, right? Life just keeps throwing at you opportunities for you to step into more of that, to not judge yourself, to not disconnect from yourself, but to step into self-love. So many opportunities. So that's the difference with the foods. You can be eating kale salads and be like, I hate this, but right, okay, I gotta do this. That's not self-love. I mean, it is in the sense of discipline, but it can come from, oh, I hate this, but it's good for me. I look forward to being healthy. I'm doing this because I want to feel strong and good in my body. It can come from, I'm not healthy, so this is the punishment. I have to eat disgusting food. Okay, that's not self-love. I hope you can feel the difference between the energies. Let me know below if that makes sense. Because that's one that people get wrong. They're doing the right things for the wrong reasons, and it doesn't work, right? Okay. I actually want to separate those. The four and five, I want to separate them too. The first one being boundaries with yourself and the distortions and learning, like I said, CBT from the beginning, learning how to talk to your mind, learning what are those tricks that your mind is using against you, okay? And not letting your inner critic run the show. And one of the powerful practices that I actually have another free resource, it's when they're the links below, you're going to click on, you're going to see 2 pages. One is through the 4 elements, and the other one, there's like a meditation bundle. The first practice of that allows you to step into the you, like your foundation, that's beyond the inner critic. And I strongly, strongly recommend that practice, because especially when your inner critic's eating you up, that first practice, like, oh, wait a second, I'm not that. And I can just take that off, or I can put it on as a coat, right? And I'm free. And that allows you to learn how to operate on those 2 levels of like, this is my center, this is who I am, and there's this story, and I get to choose how I want to mold it, but that is not me. Okay? That is a really great resource. This is how you take your control back. So check that out. Again, free resources down below in the description. And the fifth one, I want it to be about boundaries with other people. This is a tricky one. This is the most tricky one, and this is self-love. When you understand, first of all, that your self-love is necessary for life to thrive, that through your self-love, through you standing up for you, you're allowing all of life to thrive. Because, for example, when you are in lack, when you feel, let's say from 1, I feel horrible, to 10, you're feeling, I'm amazing, I'm overflowing with joy, abundance, bliss. You're at a 4. Someone asks you for advice. What is the quality of that advice you're going to give them? It will likely be advice based on projection. It will likely be advice based on fear or lack. Right? When you're there self-abandoning, a lot of parents have this. They're like, I want to be there for my kids, and I can't see them. I can't have them see me fall apart. And because I've worked with clients who were those kids, who grew up with parents that showed and created unrealistic standards of like, well, mom and dad never fell apart, so what is wrong with me when I'm falling apart? Or, well, mom and dad never fell apart, so why is my partner falling apart? All right, because that's the dynamic. Those intimate relationships created in childhood, you're attracted to partners that are based on that. So when you had such standards of, they love me unconditionally and they never lose their shit, they're superhuman, why can't I find a partner who's like that? Because they weren't like that. And these things, when we don't allow ourselves to love ourselves, we continue that in the next generations. We have children who are unable to love themselves, who are just as miserable as we are. But we think that we're doing the right thing. Okay? Or maybe you don't have kids. And it's that first example that I started talking about. You give advice from a place of lack. How's that going to go? That advice is going to be coming from fear, from projection. It's not going to serve life. It's not going to serve the person. It's going to get them more confused. But when you're there, one with life, because you're so full, you feel so much bliss and abundance, no matter what happens, because you're connected, you're aligned, you're centered. I've had such ups and downs happen in my experience after the spiritual shift, after deepening into this work. I've had breakups after which I come out, I'm like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Like, it's great, that we had what we had, and now I'm looking forward to the next stage of my life. And like right off the bat, things that seemingly everybody's like, oh gosh, how are you going through? I'm like, I'm great. Because of the self-love, because of the self-care, because rooting, grounding in that. When you trust yourself, when you cultivate that trust within you, you understand that all of life is supporting you. That you can trust life, and therefore you trust the people around you. Oh, this person, yes, this person, no. This I can tell this doesn't feel right. You know your center, you know your voice. You feel stable. You're invincible from a place of self-love. This is why this is important, and this is why I'm bringing this to you here. Okay, so let us summarize now the 5 ways to embody that self-love, to bring that into your life. Number 1, how do you speak to yourself, right? And there's a free resource, like I said, down below. Number 2, what is the food that you consume? Number 3, what is the environment that you create or that you tolerate, all right? Number 4, boundaries with your own inner critic, boundaries with your own mind. How do we step into that? And for that as well, free resource below. Check it out. It's amazing. And number 5, boundaries with others. This is the one that requires the most work. Now, again, if you want to go deeper with this, if you need one-on-one support with this, reach out to me and we can see if it's a right fit. And if you want to just kind of dip your toes into this work, check out Thrive, the monthly membership where we have lives. You have access to me that I can coach you through this. Because like I said, especially those things with the boundaries, when your inner critic keeps acting out, when you have boundaries around other people that are telling you, no, you're selfish if you do that, it's difficult. It's difficult, and that requires support. So if that's something that you want, check it out below. On this note, I thank you so much for being here, and until next time.